In this city, the senator and the police come to a strange prisoner to solve the most complex cases.
My name is Claude Kreiner. I'm a senator from Arizona, married, 2 kids.
Rush hour in the city subway. Sprawled vulgarly across the seat, a young thug devours with his eyes a young journalist named Beth. When the girl stops paying attention to him, he decides to push his insolence further. Getting up from his seat, he stands right in front of her so that her face is level with his crotch. Other women in the carriage notice this. One of them starts recording the guy, but he demands that she hand over the phone so he can delete the footage. He appeals to the law, reminding her that he cannot be filmed without his consent. At that point, the other women decide to step in as well. The boldest among them, Janice, points her phone at the hooligan too, but warns him that she's live streaming and that the police will be waiting for him at the next stop. Cops really do appear at the station, but it turns out to be pure coincidence. When Beth approaches Janice to thank her, the woman admits there was no live stream at all and that the phone doesn't even have any apps installed. Despite that, Beth asks Janice for an interview. She even gives the woman her business card and takes her phone number to get in touch later and discuss everything. 6 months later, in a completely different country, a former criminology professor, Jefferson Grief, is awaiting his sentence. He's been sentenced to death for the brutal murder of his wife, but even so, some of the most influential people continue to visit him. They ask for Grief's help in solving complex crimes. This time, the client is a senator. He has started receiving anonymous money transfers, each time after fulfilling his marital duties. The heavyset man wants to know who is sending him the money and why. Grief immediately understands what's going on. Several years ago, the senator was accused of heinous crimes, and it seems someone wants to remind him of that. Helping Grief in the investigation is his cellmate, Dylan. He's also serving time for serious crimes, but he has a photographic memory, which proves helpful for the criminologist in piecing together the details. Meanwhile, in England, where Janice now lives, a church service is taking place in a small, quiet town. After the sermon, the local priest Harry locks himself in his office, but he doesn't get a moment's peace. Eccentric altar boy Edgar bursts into the room, his hands shaking, and begs the priest to hide a USB stick filled with adult films. He's terrified his strict elderly mother might find it. Harry dislikes deceit in his church, but agrees to help the boy and hides the flash drive. He has no idea that this is the beginning of a chain of horrifying events. That evening, Grief continues to investigate the senator's case and quickly realizes that the money transfers are coming from the senator's own wife. She found out about his crimes and is now trying to punish him, but the convict is asked to put the case on hold and do someone a favor. Speak to journalist Beth, who dreams of writing an article about the criminologist's past crimes. After the service, Harry meets Janice. She turns out to be his son's tutor, who has come to give the boy a math lesson. On the way to the house, a friendly conversation starts between Harry and Janice, and it quickly becomes clear they are longtime good friends. At home, chaos ensues. Ben, Harry's son, doesn't want to study. Instead, he wants to go to a music festival with his friends, especially since the internet is down again, making studying impossible. Ben asks the tutor to transfer the study materials via flash drive and ends up using his father's USB stick. Harry doesn't manage to stop the tutor in time, and she plugs the flash drive into the laptop. Noticing his father's panic, Ben realizes there's something inappropriate on the drive and claims the videos are his. When Harry and Janice are left alone, the teacher shows the priest what's on the flash drive. It does contain adult videos, but that's not the main issue. The real problem is that the files include criminal footage involving children. Harry assures the teacher that Ben has nothing to do with the videos. At first, he tells her the truth. The flash drive was given to him by one of the parishioners, but he can't name the person, and he'll handle everything himself. But Janice doesn't believe the priest, and he's forced to say that the videos are his and that no one must know about them. She doesn't believe that either. She begins to hurriedly gather her things to leave, and Harry realizes if she walks out now, everyone will soon know what happened in the house. She could call the police on them. Wanting to protect his son, the priest tries to stop Janice, and a real struggle breaks out between them. Janice manages to snap a blurry photo, but Harry doesn't know about it. He grabs the woman's phone from her hands and smashes it on the floor. Once again, Janice tries to flee the house, and Harry is left with no other choice but to push her. During the scuffle, a terrible accident happens. Janice trips and falls down the stairs into the basement. That's when Harry gets an idea. He locks her down there so he can talk to his wife and then figure out what to do next. When the doorbell rings, Harry realizes this is the perfect opportunity to send his son away from the house. He quickly lets Ben go to the festival and stays behind, alone with Janice. At the same time, Beth meets with Grief. She asks him to give an interview and tell her everything about his crime and his motives, but the convict refuses. He admits he doesn't want people to feel sympathy or pity for him. Beth has to leave without getting the story, but as she exits the prison, she sees a message from Janice. The woman has attached the blurry photo to it. When Mary, Harry's wife, returns home, the priest confesses everything to her. As usual, the woman takes her husband's side and she asks him to go down to the basement, feed Janice, and try to talk to her. While the couple talks, Beth tries calling her friend, but hears nothing but ringing. Harry goes down to the basement, but a conversation is impossible. Janice is convinced that after everything that's happened, the priest will never let her leave alive. She begins to wound herself multiple times, leaving traces of blood all around the basement. She tells Harry that she's ready for the end, but she will take down everyone involved. Janice also tells the priest that she has a video call scheduled with her sister tomorrow at 9 p.m. If she doesn't show up, they'll start looking for her immediately. Harry's house will be the last known place she was headed, and the search will lead there. The traces will be found, and the crime will be uncovered. Beth makes several more attempts to call Janice, but when she still gets no answer, she returns to the prison. This time she wants to become Grief's client. She asks him to help investigate her friend's disappearance. Beth shows Grief the photo and tells him everything she knows. She tries to hide her emotions and claims Janice is her friend, but the criminologist sees through the lie and demands the truth. The girl finally admits how they met and confesses that Janice had been distant all along, often avoiding communication and postponing meetings. Unexpectedly, Grief offers Beth a deal. He'll give her a detailed, honest, and compelling interview, but in return, he won't help her look for her friend. The girl hesitates for a long time, but ultimately agrees in order to create a sensational report. After that, Grief offers her the chance to participate in another investigation to understand his life from the inside. A woman is supposed to come to him soon. Her husband has gone missing, and Beth has the chance to work alongside a dangerous criminal. That evening, Harry brings bedding down to the basement so the prisoner can sleep properly. He also takes a pair of handcuffs with him, the ones he and Mary once received as a gift for their bedroom games. The priest asks the prisoner to put on the handcuffs and once again assures her that neither he nor his son has anything to do with the videos on the flash drive. But Janice doesn't believe him. What difference does it make now anyway, when she has no chance of escaping and staying alive? Out of stress, Mary turns to strong drinks and begins thinking of ways to get rid of the prisoner. She lists several options to her husband, but he refuses to even consider them. On the contrary, Harry wants to end all of this the right way, release Janice and protect his son from slander and disgrace. Harry decides to find Edgar, get a confession from him, prove to Janice that he wasn't lying, and let her go. He asks his wife to trust him and give him a chance to make things right. Meanwhile, two women, mother and daughter, come to Grief. The head of their family disappeared right after receiving an award, and it's been 5 years since. The woman pleads for help in finding her husband, and Beth is present during the conversation. At Grief's request, she even holds the woman's hands to help her cope with the emotions. After the clients leave, Grief assigns his new assistant an important task. Harry arrives at Edgar's house, but the boy's mother says he's gone to the bar. The priest hurries there and finds the altar boy. Turning on the recorder on his phone, he tries to convince Edgar to take back his flash drive. But consumed by shame and fear, the young man starts claiming he's never seen it before in his life. Edgar runs away, but Harry refuses to give up. He finds the boy again, asks him to get in the car, and drives him to the church so he can confess his grave sin. At Grief's request, Beth travels around the state, stopping at strange places. In one of them, someone hands her an envelope and a set of code words. Tomorrow at 9 p.m., the subject must make a video call. While her husband is dealing with Edgar, Mary grabs a bottle of whiskey and a glass, preparing to speak with Janice. She also admits she doesn't want to harm the woman, but she fears for her family. Janice tells Mary the same thing she told Harry, about the diary with their home address, about the scheduled call with her sister. Then she offers a deal. She'll give Mary the password to her email so she can write a message on her behalf and postpone the call with a believable excuse. It would buy them some time. But in exchange, Janice wants something personal, something only Mary can give her. The main condition, Mary must not tell her husband anything. If she does, the deal is off. Janice explains it's because she hates Harry. She always has, even before any of this happened. Back in the house, Mary turns on Janice's phone and finds numerous messages from Beth. She decides to use this as a distraction and replies to the girl, pretending to be Janice. Harry arrives at the church and asks the boy to confess. Edgar obeys everything the priest tells him, but even in confession, he cannot bring himself to say out loud what he liked to watch. He's afraid of sin and terrified that his mother might find out. He believes there can be no forgiveness. Realizing the boy will never admit it, Harry decides to take the blame upon himself and save his son and wife. He asks Edgar to transfer all the video files to his computer and forget this ever happened. He also begs him to stay away from these vile temptations and to remember whenever the urge returns that a priest sacrificed himself for his redemption. Beth continues following Grief's instructions. She arrives at the train station where the missing man was last seen and watches the crowd intently. She still doesn't understand where the detective is leading her, but she follows every order. Harry drives Edgar home and, before letting him go, gives the boy a few firm smacks to the back of the head. Edgar's mother, who's been watching everything from the window, sees this. Back home, Harry heads down to the basement, and Janice tells him the same thing she told his wife. She agrees to cancel the video call with her sister and even gives him the password to her email, no strings attached. The man doesn't understand why Janice is helping him. Beth isn't sitting still either. She arrives at the home of the woman searching for her husband and delivers the envelope from Grief. As soon as the homeowner opens the message, she panics and runs away. The journalist doesn't understand what's going on, but Grief explains that the woman got rid of her husband herself and launched this whole investigation to divert suspicion. As proof of his words, Grief allows Beth to look at a photo. She sees the missing man's trophy, smeared with dirt, but the detective admits it's just a photoshopped image, created to observe the real criminal's reaction. After completing the task, Grief assigns Beth a new mission. She is to fly to England. There, she'll investigate Janice's disappearance, something the detective has finally decided to look into. The code words Beth received earlier were the first step in unraveling the case. The priest is forced to confess to his wife what he has done. Mary is furious with him, but there's nothing she can change now. While the couple argues and tries to find another solution, Edgar's mother discovers him in his room with a rope around his neck. Next to him are burial clothes and a note asking not to blame the priest, Harry, for any of the vile crimes. The prison warden, who has grown fond of Grief, regretfully informs him that the execution date has been set. The criminology professor is scheduled to be punished in 3 weeks. Grief wants to return to his cell to reflect on everything, but the warden must follow procedure and go over the regulations for final preparations. All night and the following morning, the priest's family prepares for what's to come, their eventual separation, and the stain Harry's name will bear from this shameful story. Mary begs her husband to change his mind, but he sees no other way to bring closure to everything that's happened. He also admits that, during the night, he created more pieces of evidence that would confirm his guilt. The couple's argument is interrupted by a phone call. Harry is informed of Edgar's death and that the boy mentioned the priest in his final note. Because of this, the police will be arriving at the priest's home in a few hours to speak with him and try to uncover the boy's motive. Harry heads down to the basement and tells the hostage what he has just learned. He promises that after his talk with the police, he will let Janice go and that she is free to testify against him. But he asks her not to harm his son, who has nothing to do with any of this. Mary overhears Janice mention some kind of agreement, but Harry refuses to answer her questions and asks his wife to go out into the garden and wait while he brings her tea. At the same time, the priest's son enters the kitchen and once again suspects something strange is happening in the house, that something is being kept from him. He notices that Janice's bag is still hanging in the hallway, but after he leaves, Harry quickly hides the incriminating evidence. What he doesn't know is that his son has returned and caught the lie. At the airport, Beth is met by a woman named Morag. She flashes a badge and Beth assumes she's with the police. Morag hands her a folder containing documents she managed to obtain. Beth also notices a pepper spray canister, but Morag quickly changes the subject, unwilling to answer questions. On the way into town, Morag admits that she's not a cop. She stole the badge during a scuffle with the police and has been using it for her own benefit ever since. Meanwhile, Grief and Dylan talk through the bars about the professor's upcoming execution. Dylan describes the ordeal Grief will have to endure and brags that he avoided the death penalty by trickery. He claimed to be a Buddhist, and the prison administration couldn't find anyone qualified to offer religious services. At a roadside diner, Morag tells Beth that Grief didn't just get rid of his wife. Her head has never been found, and the killer refuses to give any statements. She urges the journalist to keep that in mind while working with Grief, but Beth already knew all the gruesome details of the crime. It later turns out that the whole thing was a setup. Griff had asked Morag to speak with Beth while he listened to the conversation through a phone. He did this to find out whether Beth was truly serious about the case or just playing detective and using him for her own purposes. Harry goes down to the basement and informs Janice that the police have arrived. He asks her to stay quiet, and she gives her word that she will, but she begs him not to gag her, and Harry agrees. However, Mary will come down to keep watch and make sure the prisoner doesn't do anything foolish. Left alone, Janice tries to reach a golf club with her foot. When that fails, she resorts to a different tactic. She repeatedly slams her head against a pipe to inflict gruesome injuries on her face. A police car pulls into the priest's yard. Harry takes his place in the living room, but first places a phone, recording, on a shelf. The second phone is taken by Mary and she goes downstairs with it. The doorbell rings, and trying to hide his fear, Harry lets the officers into the house. Mary immediately warns Janice that there's no use screaming. She's disabled the phone's microphone and muted it just in case. But then something about the prisoner's face catches her attention. She sees the wounds and tries to figure out who caused them. Janice starts provoking Mary. She tells her to gag her mouth and threatens to scream and alert the police. Meanwhile, everything upstairs remains calm. Harry leads the officers into the living room, offers them tea, and prepares for a serious conversation. Mary starts to suspect that Janice isn't as helpless as she seems. She catches her in a few lies and in attempts to turn her against Harry, but for now, all of that has to be set aside. It's time to listen to the priest's conversation with the cops. Harry pretends to be shocked and saddened by what happened to Edgar. He refuses to answer uncomfortable questions, reminding the police about the sanctity of confession. However, he does ask them to tell him exactly what Edgar wrote about him in his final note. The priest is forced to admit he was the last person to see Edgar alive. At one point, he starts contradicting himself and hides the fact that he went looking for the boy at a pub. But the detectives quickly catch him in the lie and he changes his story. Mary and Janice are both listening closely. They hang on Harry's every word and hear him read aloud the note Edgar left behind. The tension spikes. Janice makes a sudden move and Mary grabs the golf club. At the same time, Harry starts backpedaling and comes up with clumsy excuses to avoid dishonoring the boy and to protect himself. He claims he doesn't know what the note is referring to and insists he is not defending any criminals. Janice feels an overwhelming urge to scream. She grabs her mouth with both hands, and Mary is forced to gag her with duct tape so she doesn't draw the officers' attention. Grief continues working on the case, but now his mind is clouded by the approaching execution. He asks a guard to deliver a letter to the warden, then lies still on his bed, staring blankly at the wall. During another stop on the road, Morag asks Beth to tell her about her work and herself. The journalist gladly admits she loves what she does and enjoys writing about crime. Ben is changing too. He senses that his parents are hiding something from him, and it starts to make him deeply uneasy. He shares his worries with his girlfriend, and even refuses to go over to her place. First, he wants to get home and confirm his suspicions. Once the police leave, Mary comes up to the kitchen and tells her husband that they now have only one option: get rid of Janice. If they don't, the woman will go to the police and claim that the priest was covering for his son, the one Edgar referred to in his final note. After all, Edgar never confessed to anything directly. He just wrote that Harry was protecting a terrible person. Harry decides to go down and speak with Janice, but his wife warns him to be careful. Their prisoner is cold-blooded and clever, and she's trying to turn them against each other, and it seems she's doing a pretty good job. Harry finds her with a wound on her head and her mouth taped shut. She's crying and insists that the injuries on her face were inflicted by Mary, who also forbade Harry from speaking about it. Harry goes back upstairs, but Mary's no longer there. She's gone to the garage to find the space heater and set it up in the basement for the hostage. The priest doesn't like the idea. He reminds his wife that the heater's been broken for a long time and leaks carbon monoxide. But Mary doesn't even try to argue. In her eyes, this is the simplest and most humane way to eliminate the prisoner. Mary screams at her husband so loudly that her voice carries across the yard, and Ben hears it. The boy rushes home, trying to find the keys and figure out who his mother was talking about. At that moment, Mary reads Harry the message she sent to Janice's sister, pretending to be her. It seems harmless. Nothing in it raises suspicion. After hearing her out, Harry agrees. He grabs the heater and drags it inside to install it in the basement. But once he's down there, the priest locks all the doors behind him, determined to do it alone, to keep his wife from bearing the guilt. Grief is brought into the visitation room where the prison warden is waiting for him. They want to discuss the prisoner's letter. Grief has offered to reveal the location of his wife's head in exchange for postponement of the execution indefinitely. But there's more. Once the head is found, everyone will also learn the motive behind the murder, which he has kept hidden for years. Harry installs the heater, goes back upstairs, and seals the basement door. He tapes the edges shut, unaware that his son is still down there with Janice. Ben doesn't understand what's happening and decides to confront his father. But when he tries to go upstairs, he finds the door locked and the key won't fit the lock. Harry turns up the music. He can't hear his son's screams or Mary's urgent messages, in which she reveals that the letter to Janice's sister was just a trap. Grief calls Beth and tells her he knows where Janice is, but she must figure it out herself. As clues, the convict gives her several metaphors and proverbs, and Morag drives the journalist to a remote facility to continue the investigation. After the call, Grief meets with his late wife's father, who demands to know the location of the missing head. But the prisoner sticks to his condition. He'll reveal it only if his execution is canceled. This enrages the grieving father, and he lunges at Grief, but the warden orders the guards not to intervene and lets the confrontation play out. Harry continues to ignore his wife's calls and still doesn't hear his son's cries. By now, Janice has realized what the heater is for. She closes her eyes and thinks back to her first day in the priest's house, when she had just become Ben's tutor. But from that day on, Janice became more than a regular guest in the house. She started setting her own rules and changing the family's life in many ways. Ben was also under Janice's influence. He shared personal secrets with her and considered her a friend. Using this trust, Janice convinces the boy that everything done to her was his father's doing. Remaining calm, Harry sets a timer for 1 hour and waits for it all to be over. After receiving medical attention, Grief is returned to his cell. He confesses to the prison warden that he gave away his last bargaining chip to his late wife's father. Now he has no chance of avoiding execution because the man will never help him. But the warden sees things differently. Morag drives Beth to an apartment they refer to as the base. They'll have to wait there for further messages from Grief, but the biggest surprise is that Morag broke into the apartment. It's a normal thing for her, and she doesn't understand why Beth is so upset about it. Janice hears a vibration coming from Ben's pocket and asks the boy to call the police, but the teenager refuses. He wants to understand what's really going on and why his father would do something like this. The warden meets privately with Grief's former in-law and shows him surveillance footage. He blackmails the old man, demanding he stop the execution if Grief was telling the truth, and the head is indeed where he claimed. Finally, Harry returns Mary's many missed calls and asks what was so urgent and what's wrong with the letter. Mary has just now realized that they wrote the letter incorrectly, and any competent detective will spot the inconsistencies and come looking for Janice at their house. Janice continues to plead with Ben. She holds his hand and tells him he's like a son to her. She promises that if they get out of there, she'll do everything in her power to protect him from his parents. The boy's phone starts ringing. It's his father, but Janice begs him not to answer, and Harry leaves a voicemail, assuming Ben is still at school or with his girlfriend. Mary returns home, and Harry hands her Janice's belongings, her laptop, bag, and phone. He asks his wife to hide everything so no one will find it and trace the detective back to them. Mary begs her husband to stop. There's still time not to go through with this, but the priest sees no other way to protect his son from being accused of what was on the flash drive. He asks his wife to leave and pretends she knows nothing about what's happening in the house. Ben listens to his father's voicemail and wants to respond, but Janice keeps urging him not to, and to use what little battery he has left to call the police instead. Suddenly, Harry jumps up, runs to the closet, and opens the door, but he doesn't get the chance to follow through. His phone rings. It's Ben. Harry tries to act calm, not realizing his son is calling from the basement. Ben asks his father about Janice, but Harry lies, assuring him that the teacher is fine. This only fuels the teenager's suspicion that Janice is telling the truth, and his father isn't who he claims to be. Listening to his son, Harry realizes that Janice has to be eliminated after all, and that his pity is misplaced. Still holding his phone, he approaches the door and tapes the seams shut again, hoping the prisoner passes out soon. The boy is crying, and Harry's heart clenches, but he hopes he'll have everything resolved by the time his son comes back upstairs. What he doesn't realize is that Ben is already losing consciousness from the carbon monoxide. Mary drives to Janice's apartment to plant her belongings there. On the way, she tries to stop at a cafe restroom, but seeing a closed sign, she decides to relieve herself inside the teacher's apartment instead. At that very moment, Beth calls Grief from the bathroom of the apartment Morag broke into. Grief is forced to end the call. He's being summoned by the prison warden, and Beth doesn't get the chance to tell her mentor that Mary has just burst into the bathroom. Mary tries to play it off. She claims to be Janice's friend, but Beth notices that the woman is frightened and trying to flee. Then Mary makes the dumbest move possible. She grabs a bread knife and starts waving it in front of the journalist, making bizarre noises. Without meaning to, Mary slashes Beth's arm, leaving a shallow cut. Panic overtakes her, but just then Ben calls. He tells his mother that he's been locked in the basement this entire time. Mary flees. On her way out, she tries to call Harry, but he doesn't answer. He's waiting for the timer to go off, signaling that Janice has stopped breathing. During her frantic escape, Mary accidentally knocks Janice down the stairs, but she doesn't stop. She runs outside, desperate to save her son. On the street, Mary keeps dialing Harry again and again, but he still doesn't pick up. She runs as fast as she can, hoping to make it in time, but she doesn't. As soon as she steps onto the road, she's struck by a truck. Janice starts realizing why she feels so sick. She begs Ben to turn off the heater, but he doesn't listen. He can't understand how she could think his father would be interested in such disgusting videos involving children. The boy pieces everything together and realizes that his father has been trying to protect him all along. He grabs the hammer Janice had once tried to throw at the heater and with a swing brings it down. There's a knock at the priest's door. A delivery man stands on the porch. He asks to leave a package with Harry for the neighbors and requests a short video message for his mom. When the timer beeps, Harry is overwhelmed by the gravity of what he's done. He tells the courier to leave, slams the door shut, and rushes to the basement. Downstairs, the priest finds his son holding a wet hammer, standing beside Janice's body. To protect the boy, Harry convinces him that he, the father, was the one who did everything, and that Ben's hands are dirty only because he tried to stop his father. The boy's nerves finally snap. He runs out of the house, and Beth, who has just arrived, sees him fleeing, but Harry doesn't notice her. He returns inside, picks up the hammer, and smears his own hands with blood to take the blame. He calls the police, but during the call, Harry realizes that Janice is still alive. Meanwhile, Morag catches up with Ben. Harry decides to finish what his son couldn't. Otherwise, Janice will tell the truth, and Ben could suffer the consequences. But he doesn't get the chance to land the final blow. Beth tackles him to the ground. A moment later, a team bursts into the basement. The very people Grief had sent to search for his wife's missing head. Grief and Harry meet in prison, or rather in separate prisons, via video call. Grief tells the priest that what happened to him could happen to anyone. Now the only thing left is to accept the punishment, just as Grief will, because even now he still hasn't revealed where his wife's head is hidden.